Hi, everyone. Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center, and I'm pleased and honored to have with us today Mark Robilliard with Color Accounting. And one of the things that I'm excited to do here is really kind of get the backstory behind the program and what it is that both he and Peter were able to create. So welcome and thank you for being on the conversation here.
Thanks, Roger. Glad to be here. And I'm not sure how interesting my backstory might be, but we'll give it a go.
Oh, just the accent alone is going to be a pleasure. She's totally fine.
Now, you can tell I'm from Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, from Wisconsin. That's right. That's what every Wisconsinite sounds like.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Oh, okay. So let me kick in. I was an accidental accounting student. That sounds a bit crazy, but back in Australia, where I was living at the time, going to university, well, at high school actually, and I had no intention of doing accounting. Some of my friends were keen on it, but got to the end of high school and I was a bit lost, and I ended up following them down to the local college and signing up to do accounting. And it was both the best and worst decision I ever made in my life. Strangely enough, I hadn't done it before, so I didn't even know what it was. I literally was clueless and remained so for the next 3 years. But it just defeated me. Accounting 101 was the first time in my life that I seriously couldn't get it. I couldn't understand. And I just studied up enough, I'm studious. I studied up enough to pass, but really I was not competent. And when I went out to work, 3 years later with my degree firmly clutched in my hand, luckily I worked for a small firm, one partner, country accounting practice up on the coast in Queensland. If I'd gone to work for one of the big 8 at the time, I think they would have swallowed me up and spat me out real quick, because they just wouldn't have had the patience for it. And so the one partner, once I fessed up that I really, here's my picture, right? I'm sitting in my new cubicle. It wasn't even an office or anything like that. It was a cubicle. It was a table. And I got a shopping bag full of receipts and things from a client that he had, and he gave it to me and said, "Here, Mark, do a bank rec for this client," whoever it was, a shop or something similar, something small. And I didn't know what a bank rec was. I couldn't remember. So I'm sitting there in my new office with my Accounting 101 textbook balanced on my knees, trying to read it surreptitiously under the desk to work out how to do this. And of course you can't, because that's not the design of these things. So I had to go and tell him I couldn't do it. And boy, was that embarrassing. Anyway, he gave me a very suspicious look, and I just see him sort of giving the Nero thumbs up or thumbs down, I think. And luckily for me, he stuck with me, and he showed me on a big piece of paper, sort of sketched out how it works. And I'd never seen it like that before. And 21 column dissection pad, and we did it manually. And I tell you, that's when I learned how accounting works. And a few months later, lights were fully on, and then I had a burning resentment, because it's easy, really. Why was it taught so, in my mind, badly? Little did I know then that's just the way it's taught. It hasn't changed for 500 years. Just I was one of the unlucky ones who didn't see it straight off. So that's sort of a nutshell. A quick update. Then 10 years or so later, I found myself head of training for KPMG Australia. Now, that's a reversal of fortunes.
Hold on. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, because I want to stop on something. One of the things I love about your story is the fact that you're so non-traditional, the fact that you're in the accounting profession, but you admit at the very beginning it didn't make sense, it didn't resonate, you didn't have a passion for it. That's such a relationship that so many people can really maybe see something unique in what you're doing, because you went through this journey, first of all, not really understanding accounting as some people do. So it was a challenge for you to kind of grasp the concepts and the numbers of it all.
Yeah, I really understood the pain that people have, and I still do. Still major empathy with it. And it put me in, as you said, in a unique position where, that burning resentment about the pain I went through at university, at college, it later came back, in terms of, well, let's do something about this. and that became a 20 plus year mission. I didn't have any clue it would be as hard or lengthy as it turned out to be. But
Anyway. Well, the
anyway.
beauty of what you're sharing is the fact that you came away with that whole experience with a unique perspective about the accounting process and the profession. And so it's through that perspective that you were able to then create something totally new from a completely different point of view to help people understand the accounting model.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, I should introduce my business partner, Peter, who's not really beside me. He's just feels that way. He lives in Geneva.
Oh, you're not even doing him favors. Give the last name. Got to throw that in there.
Well, Peter Frampton, but we call him the non-musical Peter Frampton. For any of you who have a love of live music, you'll probably realize who I'm referring to. Or otherwise Google it. Anyway, so our Peter Frampton, I met him at KPMG, as I was saying, ended up at KPMG in charge of training. And then finally I've sort of jumped over a sort of a key piece, which was found myself in London a few years later thinking, will I go back to Australia? I'd been doing some good work there. What will I do with myself? My grandfather's words, just strangely came back to me, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I was a young boy, and he said to me at some point, "You should be a teacher." Now, he was a farmer. I'm not sure why he said it, but it stuck in my mind. And at that moment, it came back to me, and I thought, right, as all good career decisions are made, that was going to be my next thing. So I went back to Australia, went back to the university I attended as a student, knocked on the door at the business faculty, and said, "Here I am. Give me a job." And they did, which was even more crazy. So then I learned, how hard it is, in a sense, the constraints of curriculum-based education and dealing with materials that really haven't progressed in 500 years, T accounts and debit left, credit right, all these concepts that people take for granted but don't help students see what accounting is. So I met Peter at KPMG, and he'd had a similar issue. And he had actually failed accounting 101, so he had one up on me. And I'm sure he won't mind me telling that story. And so we started talking about, well, why? What was it? And we didn't really know what the problem was. We had thoughts and ideas, but we started in, I think it was 1992 in Melbourne, Australia. We sat down for the first time and started throwing some ideas down on paper. And one of them was to come up with a visual identity system. So computers became easy to use when Apple and then Microsoft Windows built a WYSIWYG user interface, so you could see what you were actually looking at, not lines of code, but images. And the mouse, of course, was a big part of that. And so that sort of helped drive us. And I guess the Apple, we're not a tech company like Apple, but some of their philosophies of simple is better. I tell you, simple is hard. It's really easy to come up with a complicated model with things flying out here, there, and everywhere. And we worked on that model behind me, the basis framework, for 20 years before we decided it was ready. And all we've been doing for those 20 years is taking things off it till we get it back to as simple as it can be without being simplistic. And it's a really it's a really good thing. It helps people see accounting for what it is, and once they learn how to use that thing, they've got it forever. It's learn it once and done.
So let me jump in there, because I think there's a few things that I feel are important. It's, first of all, here you are, two gentlemen, realizing that accounting, as simple as it is, somehow we've complicated it to the point that the average person struggles to get around or understand the concepts, or more importantly, we make it intimidating enough that they feel that it's something they can't grasp. And you recognizing that, you and Peter went about trying to come up with a new way to teach a very simple, basic process that people are intimidated by. So what led you to the basis program or the platform, the colors? What led you to the essence of what color accounting is today?
just the search for simplicity, sort of, in a philosophical sense, I suppose, searching for truths that were not in evidence. And the fact that still today, I mean, in the MBA around the world, I don't have any statistics on this, but everywhere I go, I ask, and the MBA accounting module is the most feared and failed module in any MBA anywhere. And that's shameful. I mean, it really isn't that hard. We've sort of allowed ourselves to believe, oh, well, that's a tough subject. It's hard to learn. And then you start going, why? Why is it? And so we literally became so curious. We dived straight down the rabbit hole. Boy, was it deep to find out, we've got right into the DNA of this, and little things like whether the balance sheet is more like a noun-based statement and the income statement's more like verbs, and these distinctions that had never been pulled up before. And that was where we started getting to the meat of it. These things like perspective, point of view. People get confused because they're using the wrong point of view. They think equity is valuable. Well, sure it is if you're standing outside a company holding on to your asset, which is your investment in that company. But switch perspective, go inside the company, and equity is an obligation against your assets. So it's not valuable. And things like that, where the wrong perspective is used to help with definitions. In the dictionary, any online dictionary you go to, even in Investopedia or one of those, will say, what's the definition of, say, revenue? And it'll be cash received. Well, that's just flat out wrong. Cash received is the result of earning revenue. It's not revenue. Cash is an asset. Can't be both. So these sort of simple, they're simple once you see them, I suppose, distinctions and so forth, really helped us understand what we needed to focus on. So I'm just going to turn that printer off. We'll cut this out.
Okay. So here's what I want to do. I want to ask for your perspective or your insights into something that I think is quite unique about the color accounting program. And it's the fact that you use color, green and yellow. You use, for someone who visually learns, that's, I think, a very, very big appeal. From a tactile point of view, some people learn by moving and holding on to things. You incorporated that into the color accounting process. And then lastly, you've got the whole experience of, I get to hear, I get to witness these movements of the accounting process. How did all of those things really make it into the color accounting process to help people learn these concepts?
Great question. Yeah, thanks for that. The thing was, the way accounting was taught was universally the same, and largely still is. It hasn't changed in the 500 or so years since accounting was invented. And so there's a couple of things there. The senses people learn with, and I don't want to get into the theory of it because I'm not sure it's that complicated really. But everyone knows we see things, we hear things, we experience things, we touch things. These are our key senses for coding all the experiences we have in some fashion. Much like a computer uses ones and zeros, we have our senses that code up our experiences for us. And so we decided to try and use all of the major learning senses, which are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, which is the touch. And so you'd think, oh, well, they created a game. Well, no, we created a model, a simulation of what happens. Well, it's actually, it's more than a simulation because it's really what happens inside an accounting system that you normally don't see. If you use Xero or QuickBooks or one of those online, a software package, an accounting software package, you see sort of half of it and they kind of dumb it down for you, attempting to help you, but I think it actually goes the other way. It reinforces stereotypes that cloud learning, or cloud your learning, not cloud-based learning. So what we did was create a board representing the general ledger. It's the basis framework, and so there's assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, and expenses, 5 elements of the general ledger. And within each element, there's a chart of accounts. So you have your asset accounts, you have your liability, etc. So we represent those with little containers called buckets, because all accountants use buckets. And then we show how the funds move around the balance sheet. It's not money moving, it's just the impact of events. All accounting games show money moving, which is really, again, a stereotype that's not real. Money doesn't move around. Money stays in the cash account. It's in or it's out. That's it. It doesn't go over to liabilities. There's no money over there. People think there's cash there and there isn't. And you know, we've had to unwind all these confusions. And the best way to do it is to make it physical. So when someone's looking at a transaction, a business event, they're trying to work out where it lands in the general ledger on the basis framework, they're physically holding these tickets. And we use the color in place of debit credit. Those two words are so confusing. They got a bad rap, deservedly so in a sense, because they don't mean anything. They don't even sound like anything. They sound similar. And to say debit is left, well, great. So if a debit account is increasing, you get more left. I mean, left's an absolute. You can't get more. So it doesn't resonate well with a lot of people. Some people get it straight out. Some people, most people don't. Whereas with color, if an asset account is green, debit, and you want to increase the value of a debit account or a green account, you just add more green to it. That's like obvious. So we would use a green ticket for that, which is an increasing effect. If we wanted to decrease it, we'd use the yellow. We use green and yellow as our, well, green and orange now, we just changed. Green and yellow, I'll still say it that way, as our debits and credits. And because it doesn't create any confusion with people, they have no pushback against it. They just accept it. And then we can switch back to the formal language later in the workshop if needed or not. Debit and credit are words accountants need to know, or bookkeepers, but not really anybody else.
So there's a few things that I'd like to share real quickly and then wrap this up for us. First of all, the fact that you've been able to now make this a kinesthetic, a tactile experience, and also at the same time bring in the visual, the green and the orange or yellow. I think what's happened is it's a testament to the CPAs and the accountants that go through the training to go, finally, this resonates on so many more levels, the accounting process that is, because now it's not just numbers moving around on one, two sides of the T account or something. We've gotten as a society so far ingrained with software that accountants don't experience like they used to the actual ledgers and journals and recording things very monotonously. And what we've done is with color accounting, what you've achieved is really getting them down to that base level of the accounting process so that they can feel and experience these transactions. And that's what I love about it, because after going through the color accounting process, I really feel that accounting becomes alive for them once again. It's a rejuvenation. And for non-accounting professionals, it's like you were saying, it's not the foreign vocabulary, it's colors and it's transactions, and they're able to see a business event occur and affect the sides of the business based on how they're going into these various buckets. I just love what you do with the accounting process through color accounting. So do you have any final thoughts regarding this whole experience and the journey you've had as you've created the model?
Yeah, it's certainly had its ups and downs, and who knew? Luckily, we didn't know how long it was going to take, I guess. But we're getting some traction, because the thing is with accounting literacy, and a key point is that everyone talks about financial literacy or business acumen as the holy grail, and you can't have those without the language, and the language is accounting language. So at the bottom of the pyramid, or the foundation level, is what's missing in most other situations, most other learning opportunities, is no foundation. And that's the problem. They don't start at 0, they start at 2 or 3. Accounting literacy it's a complete understanding of how the balance sheet and income statement work as a model, and how they're populated in terms of language, and finally the mechanics, how things increase and decrease. Otherwise, when managers are looking at their reports, they have no idea how the numbers got there. They're thinking, oh, this is cash, when mostly it's not. It's probably accrual. how most businesses work. So that would be the first thing, is just that the underpinning of everything else is accounting literacy. And we've specialized in that. We do business acumen and financial literacy, as you know, as well. But the thing to get right, and I think the big differentiator with us, is we have focused on the bedrock, getting the platform, the foundations right. Then you can put any type of financial literacy development on top of that. And the second thing is, accountants love this. Well, mostly they're skeptical at the start, because by nature they're cynics, and they just remember how they learnt it. Once they see it in action and they see the difference in other people, non-accountants, and their capacity to communicate around accounting concepts, they're firm believers after that. So, yeah, it's a big deal. We're working towards a full rollout for universities. We started late last year and this year. So our goal is financial literacy accounting literacy for all, which will lead to better financial decisions across the globe. So.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. I can definitely say that what you're doing is a worldwide mission, having done this in Australia, in South Africa, in Europe, in Canada, the United States. I mean, this is everywhere, and that's wonderful. And I love how you just now explained it as being the basics of the accounting language, that's what we're really focusing on here, and that's beautiful. So I appreciate you taking the time today to kind of give us the behind the scenes of color accounting. Being one of the founders, you truly have a perspective that needs to be shared, that is behind what is color accounting. So thank you for that story.
You're welcome. I hope it wasn't too crazy.
No. The fact that you've gone through that journey as you did, struggling initially in the accounting training, the education side, I think gives you such a unique perspective, and it really brings a new insight to how accounting should be taught. And so I love what you've created, and I'm pleased to say that we here at Universal Accounting Center can offer it. So this is beautiful. Mark, thank you for the time. And just realize this, if it's about accounting, it's Universal. I'll be putting beneath here in the description some information regarding color accounting and how you can learn more about what you can do to go through this process and become more confident in your abilities to either do accounting or communicate accounting information to non-accounting professionals. So thank you very much. And Mark, have a wonderful day.
You too. And thank you, Roger. And thank you to Universal Accounting for being a supporter of ours. And we're a supporter of yours. And it's fantastic. Thank you.
Beautiful. Everybody take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.